Hey guys, in this video I'm going to explain the fourth logic game from LSAT PrepTest 71, which is the December 2013 LSAT. This is the game involving 7 paintings arranged in a row. This game I would consider a strict ordering or strict sequencing game because the variables are being related directly to specific spaces and in a very direct, specific way. The rules are not loosely relating them in before-after relationships, but instead we have rules that are much more immediate and direct. So I've laid out some rules here as well as the main diagram, and I'll explain each of those as we go forward. So first of all, we have the 7 variables, M, P, R, S, T, V, and W. We have the 7 spaces numbered 1 through 7. We know that T must be closer to the entrance than W, and since the first position is closest to the entrance, then T before W indicates that relationship that T is closer to the entrance than W is. They tell us that R is closer than M with exactly 1 space between them, so I put R space M, exactly 1 space between the two of them in that order with a box around it to indicate the specificity of the rule. They tell us that P and S are next to each other, although they don't tell us which one comes first. And then they tell us finally that if V is not at third, then V must be fourth. Contrapositive, if V is not fourth, then it must be third. So essentially they're telling us that V will be in either space 3 or 4. So that's it as far as the main setup goes, not too much to do regarding any inferences. We'll be doing a lot more work over the course of the game. So let's get started with question number 17, which is a general orientation question. So we'll simply want to take one rule at a time and check through all 5 answer choices looking for violations. So we can start with the first rule that T must go before W. Any choice where W goes before T, we can eliminate. So choice B violates this rule, having W before T, so B is gone. We can look at the next rule, R space M, checking for violations there, and we have that in choice A, which has M space R, and we need it to be in the order R before M, so A is gone. Next we have the rule that P and S have to touch. Choice D violates this, having T in between them, so D is gone. And then the final rule that V is in either 3 or 4, we can use to eliminate choice E, which has V on 2, leaving C as our answer for number 17. Next, number 18, if S is 7th, then where could T go? Well, if S is on 7, then we know that we're going to have P on 6, since S and P always have to touch. Then, they ask us, where could T go? Well, T can't go on 6, of course, because P is there, so E is gone for that reason. T cannot go on 5 because then we'd have no room for W to go after it, so D is gone as well. If T were on space 4, we'd run into a problem, because if T were on 4, then where could we have R space M going? We couldn't have R space M on 3 and 5 because then there'd be no room for V to go, and if we put R space M on 1 and 3, once again we'd have no room for T to go. So for that reason, we know that we can eliminate choice C, suggesting that T would be on 4. And if T were on 3, same issue. T on 3 means no room for R space M. R space M cannot go on 1 and 3. It can't go on 2 and 4 because then V can't go anywhere, and it can't go on 3 and 5 because T is on 3, so B is gone as well, leaving A for number 18. Next, number 19. If P is on 5, what must be true? So I've drawn out 2 different possibilities here. When P is on 5, we have to have S touching it, remember, so S can either go immediately before P or immediately after P. If S is immediately before P, then we'll have to have V on 3, since V is always on 3 or 4. Now the problem that results is, since we have to have R space M, well, there's no room for that because we only have 2 spaces open on each end, no room where there's a block of 3 where we could have R space M. So S on 4 is invalid, leaving us with the possibility where S goes on 6. So they ask us what must be true? Well, S on 6 must be true giving us C as our answer for number 19. Next, number 20, they ask us what cannot be in the third position. So first of all, I'd look back at previous work to see what we have had in the third position. Nothing that we've drawn so far, but in question number 17, choice C, we had M on 3. So right away we can eliminate choice A for number 20, which has M on 3, because that's proof that M on 3 works. Now, we're at an open-ended point without a clear direction in which to go, but we should think about what can't go too early. What is unlikely to be able to go too early in this game? Well, we know W is unlikely to go early because it has to have T before it, and of course M is unlikely to go too early because we have to have R before it as well. We've already gotten rid of M since we know that M can go on 3, so let's try W now. If we put W on 3, we're going to have V on 4, since V is always on either 3 or 4. Now the only area where we have room for R space M to go is 5 and 7, since we need a block of 3 for that to occur. So we've got W on 3, V on 4, R on 5, M on 7. The only space for P and S to go is 1 and 2, and of course that's completely interchangeable. We could have P on 1, S on 2, or S on 1 and P on 2. Either way is fine, and then of course T is the remaining variable. T will go on 6, that's the only space left for it. Now the problem is that we always have to have T before W, and we're violating that here. So as a result of trying to put W on 3, we ended up with an invalid scenario. So we can infer that W on 3 is impossible since this scenario is invalid, and so E is our answer for number 20. So for number 21, they ask us what could be true if we have R and M in between T and W. So remember, R and M are within the block of 3, R space M, and then T before W is a general relationship as well. So we end up with combining those two. We get T is before the R space M block, which is before W. They ask us again what could be true. So let's lay out the different possibilities. We could have R on 2 and M on 4, R on 3, M on 5, or R on 4 and M on 6. In the top possibility where R is on 2, we have to have T on 1 in order for T to go before all of those other 3. On the bottom possibility where R is on 4 and M is on 6, we have to have W on 7 in order for W to go after the R space M block. Now, let's see what else we can fill in this scenario. Well, we've got to have W coming after the T, R, and M. So in the top possibility, we don't know exactly which of these 3 spaces W will go on, but since remember we have to have P and S, we're either going to have W on 5 and PS on 6 and 7, or we're going to have W on 7 and PS on 5 and 6, and of course P and S are completely interchangeable. So this is one possibility, and then we would have the remaining variable V going on 3. So this is just one possibility. Of course, you can fill in for yourself the S and P switching around on 5 and 6 in the top and 6 and 7 on the bottom within this top diagram. The second diagram, there's no room for us to have T on one side and W on the other and still fit in our variables P and S. So this middle diagram is actually invalid due to the problem that we can't fit P and S on either side as well as one of T or W. And the bottom diagram is not going to be good because we're going to have P and S interchangeable on 1 and 2 or 2 and 3, T going elsewhere, but remember we also have to have V. So how could we possibly fit P, S, T, and V all going within the first 3 spaces on this bottom diagram? It's just not going to work. Top diagram is the only possibility, and of course the PS interchangeability as well. So they ask us what could be true. Could we have P on 5? Absolutely. So A is our answer for number 21. Next, number 22. If we have exactly one painting between T and W, what must be true? So we have the T space W imposed as a new restriction with exactly one between them, and then of course we already have the R space M with exactly 1 between them as an original restriction. That's of course the second rule of the game. Now right away I'd be thinking about V, because V's got to be on either 3 and 4, and we've got to fit these guys in as well. Now if we were to put V on 3, we could fit R, M, and T, and W. It'd work out perfectly fine. There's plenty of room. But if we were to put V on 4, we'd run into a problem. We would have to have, one of TW on one of this pair on one side of V, and one of the pair on the other side. We could try to do that, because if we were to put, T on 3 and W on 5, there'd be no room to have the other one, like in this case R space M. How could that possibly go anywhere? It simply wouldn't work. And of course, if we were to leave it where we put TW here and then RM on 5, 7, then there's no room for P and S. So if we put V on 4, we're not going to be able to make any kind of valid scenario. So as a result, we're going to have V on 3, where we're going to have a lot more freedom regarding the placement of all the other variables. So for this reason, choice E is our answer to number 22. So for question number 23, they ask us what happens if T is next to V. So if T is next to V, of course, we're going to have W after both of them, since T is always before W, and we have to keep in mind that V is always on either 3 or 4. So I've laid out 4 different possibilities here, which represent the 4 different ways we could have T and V next to each other consecutive in either order, while still complying with the restriction that V always be on either 3 or 4. So we could have V on 3 with T after it, we could have V on 4 with T before it, V on 4 with T after it, or V on 3 with T before. These are the 4 different ways that it can play out. Now, of course, we have to remember the other variables as well. So we're going to have to fit R space M in somewhere. We're going to need a section of 3 consecutive empty spaces to place them. So in the top 2 possibilities, that means we're going to have R on 5 and then have M on 7, since that's the only place that those variables could possibly fit. In the third possibility, we'll have R on 1 and have M on 3. And in the bottom possibility, it appears that we could have R on 4, M on 6, or R on 5, M on 7. So I'll just leave one of those 2 down here for now. Now, of course, we have to keep in mind the SP consecutive rule as well, and that's where that bottom possibility runs into trouble. Whether you have R4, M6, or R5, M7, either way, no space for P and S, so that bottom possibility is completely invalid. In the third possibility, that leaves us with P and S interchangeable on 6 and 7, so we could put down P and S, SP, either order on 6 and 7, doesn't really matter which way that goes. And then we'd have W on 2, and of course that's unacceptable because we have to have W going after T and V. So this third possibility becomes invalid as well. In the top 2 possibilities, we'll have to have W on 6 in order to fit it after T and V, and then we have P and S interchangeable on 1 and 2. So they ask us then, which in the 5 choices, the 5 pairs listed there, where must we have the first variable before the second variable? So choice A is automatically out since P and S are completely interchangeable as always. R before W is our answer because in both of these possibilities we have R before W, so B is our answer for 23. I will run through the rest though. Looking at C and D, which talk about T and V, we know that they're interchangeable here. Either way, we could have V before T or T before V. They're interchangeable, doesn't matter which way they go. So C and D are both eliminated since there's no specification of which goes first. And E's gone since, of course, we have R before W in both of these, leaving us with B as our answer for 23, and that's the game.